Peace and blessings, family. My name is J.S. Brooks from the Average Movement. I'm a Black American. I've been abroad going on 2 years now. I wanted to see what was it all about. When I first decided to travel abroad, the goal was to get manufacturing companies in South Africa to produce our fashion line, because I'm a designer. I design fashion and sell it in the United States. I wanted to kind of make a economic alliance or collaboration with South Africans, because I believe South Africans and Black Americans have had a very similar struggle. But since then, I've traveled to 6 countries and I've learned a lot. Let me tell you what I've learned. One, that the American government, as well as huge corporations, have sold out the American people. Not just Black Americans, even though I represent and advocate for Black Americans because I find that they're the most in need in the United States right now. But for all Americans, white, Black, and everything in between. So what I learned is that a lot of these huge corporations, they sold out the American people as well as the government. The government is more concerned with taxing the citizens than protecting them from corporate predators. And what do I mean by that? So let's take, for example, a company like Nike. Instead of manufacturing and producing in the United States of America and making jobs for U.S. citizens so they could feed their families, they could have a savings and put away to invest in generational wealth, what they do is ship their manufacturing across seas. They have people in different countries, like take for example, 51% of Nike shoes are made in Vietnam, but they're paying the average worker $2.75 per shoe. By the time it gets to the United States, that 275 cents that was paid for the worker to produce the shoe, along with other costs like product, materials, shipping, and so far and so on, by the time it reached the American general public, those shoes went from costing $2.75 to make, or we would say $20 to make. It will cost the American consumer $250 to $300 to purchase and wear. So this is taking advantage of the American people. And there's so much wrong with this, because what do we lose when corporate entities take their products abroad to be manufactured? One, the American people lose the skills to produce and manufacture. Therefore, the American people become dependent on other countries to develop their products. Two, they lose jobs in the production industry that provide an income for themselves and their families. Three, they lose money for paying inflated prices on products that can be also used for the cost of living in the United States, which is very expensive. Savings and investment that leads to generational wealth. So we got to ask ourselves, why is it that these big corporate giants have such a stronghold on the people? Like these brands, Nike, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada, all of the brands that we know, that we recognize, that most people want. Is it just the quality of the clothing, or is it something else? And what I believe is hypnotism. They're hypnotizing and programming the people to desire these things. And I think what they would technically call it is like social engineering, where they use athletes and entertainers. This is what's hot. This is what's new. This is a have-to-have product. It's always put in your face. And so then we become hypnotized in a way that we need this product, that we have to have this product, that we can't live without it. And therefore, they inflate the prices on these products. And the average citizen really loses. They lose the ability to transform generational wealth. And a lot of these athletes and entertainers has sold us out too. When I'm thinking particularly for the Black American public that really needs the assistance, we really need jobs. A lot of the corporate entities have taken jobs out of the U.S. and into different countries. That was selling out the American people overall, Black, white, and everything in between. However, when the white community catches a cold, the Black community gets the flu. It's much worse when it comes to the Black community because we are more of a vulnerable community. So when you got athletes that come from the trenches, come from the hood, come from the ghettos of the United States, and they make it big, why is it that they don't invest in jobs and products to employ the Black American people? Why is it that they don't do that? Instead, what they do is they become a part of the machine which influences the Black American people to purchase these products that are overpriced. They give the illusion of inclusion to whereas, oh, I'm LeBron James. If I can make it, so can you. When we realize there's only a certain amount of spots that you could get to be on an NBA team to be able to make millions of dollars, as well as when it comes to entertainment. And a lot of the entertainers have sold us out too. Economically, they are into individual gain than community uplift. And we have all fed into the individualism, individual gain, individual progress, than collective growth and uplift. So it's easy for them to sell out the masses of the people for their own financial gain. And this is what we're seeing happening in the United States of America. Now, I wanted to see what this was all about. So I went to 6 different countries. We got the fashion brand Evolve, and we started to produce in Indonesia and in Vietnam. And this is what I've learned about that. One, that these other countries are starting to become more aware of the prices that Americans have to pay for these products that they're making up for cents on the dollar. And so now they're raising the prices. So even with me, we were in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and we was doing some production with a production team on our clothing line, Evolve, the Social Intelligence Club, and we were paying to get some samples made up. We are not wealthy people, so we are just using our savings, get the clothing made up, get it back to the States, get it into the stores, get some sales going, get some awareness going with the people we got going on, and try to grow the brand. However, with these big corporate giants, they have a lot of money to spend. So it becomes a rich man's game where poor people are, or not even poor, but even middle class people are locked out, because now it's particularly the owner of the production company that we have had in Vietnam developed the clothing for us. She took a trip to the United States with a white guy, her boyfriend. She went to the magic show. I can't remember where she said they was holding the magic show at, maybe Las Vegas. And now her prices are skyrocketed for even samples. So now, even for the average American to come to the places where these big corporate giants have drove the manufacturing businesses to, and to be a middle class person that's investing in a product, it becomes harder and harder to obtain without large sums of money. So what can we do about this? I think that one of the biggest things that we got to do, as far as being Americans, all Americans, black, white, and everything in between, we need to become conscious consumers. One thing, I don't like Trump because of his policies, and he seemed to be bigoted. He seemed to have racism. He seemed to be very egotistical. And so I don't really like him as a politician. However, some of the things he's doing, I do like. And like they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. One of the things he's been advocating for was bringing back manufacturing to the United States. That's a big deal, because all of these big brands that we are loyal to, like Apple products, Apple doesn't manufacture in the United States. The vast majority of their products is manufactured in Wuhan, China. And big brands like Nike, Jordans, all of these products that we are loyal to, we need to stop patronizing until they begin to reinvest in Americans. And what I mean by reinvest in Americans, I mean bringing back manufacturing and start doing global sales, which is obviously going to be hard now too, because you done outsourced the labor to the point where a lot of these different countries already know how to develop the product. So they are no longer in need of that intelligence or that skill, because they've been doing it for decades now. And part of the reason why the American people have been deserted is because of power, control, and racism. And these corporations are taking advantage of the American people, and the government is allowing it, because the government get to tax them and get their little hush money, and the American people suffer because of it. So we got to become conscious consumers. So I implore you to invest in the common man's products, and not only invest your money in, you patronize it, you buy into it, you sell it, you get stores and build like that and start building it out. One of the things I've learned about traveling across seas is that they don't have no type of respect for intellectual property. They will definitely make duplicates of American brands and sell it at a much lower price, which hurts Americans. It hurts the American people. Even if it's a brand not owned by an individual, it's a brand that is being sold that could create work and jobs and opportunities for average American people. So when these products are being duplicated and sold at a less of a price, it takes the money out of the country altogether. And the American people, their labor are responsible for building all of these other countries, because we've become the consumers of the world. Because we work, we get paid, then we consume products that's no longer made in the United States. So that money ends up going to different countries and building up their countries. I think that because we're making such a strong financial investment, even with our buying power, our spending dollars, that we need to be protected. So I'm doing a search right now and I pull up the Nike store. And as you can see, the Nike, it's funny, the Nike store says play mind games. First thing you see on there. So it makes me believe that they are hypnotizing and programming the people to purchase their goods at inflated prices. It's really absurd what the American people is forced to deal with. Let's go here. This is the brand, and in this video you're going to see, us going into a factory in Wuhan, not Wuhan, China, and Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. It's also high clothing, because it costs so much to produce the product, right? To get the finest material and the finest manufacturing. So what you see here is some of the people that we've been dealing with to produce the clothing, and they do good work, without a doubt. However, I've learned, in my traveling with doing business with these different countries, is number one, they like to take advantage of Americans. They think Americans are rich and they want to obviously get over on Americans. Even now, like what I said before, they've sent the prices up sky high. And this particular guy, even though he has signed an NDA not to promote our clothing, because we're a new brand, we don't want our styles out there so people that have a larger budget could duplicate our fashion styles and then come out with it, and then it end up looking like we're the ones that are copying off them, when they just have a much larger reach. They can actually scale. And so we came back from, I think we was in Cambodia, and we went into this factory in Bali, and this guy had our clothing on the mannequins there for everybody to see. I'm not mad at the fact that our fashion is so fire that he felt like he wanted to market the work, but the bottom line is he violated the NDA. And how much rights do Americans have to their products once they're doing business overseas? So that becomes another issue. And do you have the money for the lawyers? And will the government actually hold these people to account? These are all of the type of things that you have to consider. And then they start to replicate your clothing, and you get put out of that trade when it's your own intellectual property. So that becomes an issue. But as you can see here, we've been putting it together. And this is us pretty much telling them how to control social intelligence.
Style isn't just what you wear, it's what you stand for. At Evolve, we design more than clothing. We create confidence. We celebrate individuality. We elevate social intelligence. Do not be captive to other people's expectations. Break the mold. Define yourself. Evolve. Edgy or classic, we want you to be comfortable in your own skin. Because self-awareness is power. Authenticity is freedom. And fashion is your voice. Growth begins the moment you stop shrinking yourself to fit in. At Evolve, we don't follow trends. We set them. We don't blend in. We stand out. This is more than a brand. It's a movement, a mindset, a new era of confidence.
So this is what we dealing with the Evolve. Our line is top of the line, so it's worth investing in. So definitely reach out to us if you want to make any orders, especially if you have a store connected to a store in the States. We want to take purchase orders. We kind of need that to grow the business. And at the end of the day, one of the things that we definitely want to do is we want to start purchasing the machines, bringing the machines back to the United States, teaching our young people how to manufacture our brand and do the work internally in-house. So that's going to be some of the goals for the Evolve clothing line as well as the at-risk movement. So here's another thing that we want to bring your attention to is how Nike is kind of taking a big hit because they've abandoned the American people, because now their shoes are being replicated, sold way less than it costs the consumer to purchase it. And the thing about that is countries like China and Indonesia and different countries that are the manufacturing hubs of these products, what their workers are doing now is saying, listen, we are only getting paid under $3 to produce this product. We know it's being sold for hundreds of dollars in the States. So let's take what we've learned, create our own manufacturing company, sell replicas, and X them out. This is how companies like Nike is losing money. Let's check this out.
You are standing inside a Nike store. The lighting is clean and white and designed to make everything look more expensive than it is. The walls are covered with photographs of athletes in mid-flight, mid-sprint, mid-victory. The sneakers sit on illuminated shelves like museum pieces, each one angled slightly, each one spotlit, each one positioned to make you feel like you are not buying a shoe but joining a movement. You reach for a pair of Air Jordans. They are light in your hand, the stitching is neat, the sole has a satisfying flex. You turn them over and look at the price, $250. You wince, but you think, well, they are Jordans. That is what good shoes cost. Michael Jordan wore them. The technology is advanced. The design is iconic. $250 for a piece of athletic engineering. Now let me tell you what you are actually holding. The materials in that shoe, the rubber sole, the synthetic upper, the foam midsole, the laces, the glue, cost about $9. The labor to assemble it, the hands that cut the pattern, stitch the panels, attach the sole, lace the shoe, and placed it in a box, cost about $2.75. The total manufacturing cost of the shoe in your hand, from raw materials to finished product in a box, is somewhere between $15 and $25. You are paying $250 for a $20 product. But the markup is not the most interesting part of this story. The most interesting part is where the shoe was made, WHO made it, and what those same people are doing now with the skills Nike taught them. It starts with a man selling shoes from the trunk of his car. In the spring of 1964, a 26-year-old accountant named Phil Knight drove to a track meet in Oregon with a box of Japanese running shoes in the back of his car. The shoes were made by a company called Onitsuka Tiger, which most people today know as ASICS. Knight had visited the factory in Japan during a trip around the world after graduating from Stanford Business School. He convinced the company to let him distribute their shoes in the United States, and he started selling them at track meets, one pair at a time, out of his trunk. His former track coach at the University of Oregon, a man named Bill Bowerman, joined him as a partner. Bowerman was obsessed with making shoes lighter and faster. He experimented with different sole designs in his garage, famously pouring rubber into his wife's waffle iron to create a textured sole that gripped the track better than anything on the market. The company they founded was called Blue Ribbon Sports. In 1971, they changed the name to Nike, after the Greek goddess of victory. That same year, Knight needed a logo. He asked a graphic design student at Portland State University named Carolyn Davidson to design one. She came up with a curved checkmark shape that she called the swoosh. Knight was not enthusiastic about it. He reportedly told her, "I do not love it, but maybe it will grow on me. He paid her $35. $35 logo is now one of the most recognized symbols on the planet. Nike's annual revenue is approximately $50 billion. Phil Knight's personal net worth exceeds $37 billion. The swoosh is printed on shoes, shirts, hats, bags, and billboards in virtually every country on Earth. And the company that started in a trunk now contracts with 785 factories across more than 40 countries.
So you see that 785 manufacturing companies across the globe. And all of that money, wealth, and intelligence skills is being taken out of the US and shipped across seas. And these are the products that we are supporting and we are loyal to. I think we need to rethink things because the reality is we've been abandoned and we've been sold out and we've been getting inflated prices.
Have improved since the 1990s. Nike now publishes its factory list and runs compliance programs. But the fundamental economics have not changed. The worker still earns less than $3 per pair. The shoe still sells for $250. And the gap between those two numbers still pays for everything else. The commercials, the athlete deals, the store lighting, the brand mythology that makes the markup invisible. Now think about that number in context. The worker who physically builds the shoe earns less than $3. The shoe sells for $250. The worker receives roughly 1%.
So they're saying $250, but we know that in the US, a lot of the sneakers and the brands that we like cost more than $250. The sneakers that I like to wear, the foams, they cost $300 and sometimes a little bit more. I would say the average Nike shoe is between $800 and $125. You could get it, but you can't get Jordans for that price. Jordans is going to be $125 on up. Normally, you might catch it on sale for $80, but that's on sale. But other sneakers, LeBrons and all of that, you're going to spend from $250 on up.
Nike's marketing budget alone, the money it spends on advertisements, athlete endorsements, and branding campaigns, is approximately $4 billion per year. Nike spends more on telling you about the shoe than it pays the people who make it by a factor of hundreds. None of this is secret. Nike publishes its factory list. Journalists have written about labor conditions for decades. Documentary filmmakers have gone inside the factories. The information is available, but the system continues because the brand is powerful enough to make you forget the math when you are standing in the store holding the shoe. The store lighting, the athlete photos, the swoosh, the story about Phil Knight and his waffle iron, all of it exists to put distance between you and the $2.75 pair of hands that stitched what you are holding. And for 40 years, this system worked perfectly. Nike controlled the design, the brand, and the price. The factories made the shoes and took their 2%. The workers assembled them and took their $3. Nobody challenged the arrangement because nobody had the infrastructure to compete at Nike's scale while undercutting Nike's price. Then Putian happened. Putian is a city of roughly 3 million people in Fujian province, on the southeastern coast of China, directly across the Taiwan Strait from Taiwan. In the 1980s, when China opened its economy to foreign investment, Nike, Adidas, and Puma were among the first companies to set up manufacturing operations there. The location was ideal: coastal access for shipping, proximity to raw material suppliers, a large population willing to work in factories for low wages. For years, Putian was just another stop on Nike's global manufacturing circuit. But something happened in Putian that did not happen in Vietnam or Indonesia, at least not to the same degree. The workers learned not just how to follow instructions on a production line, they learned the entire process: how to cut patterns, how to select materials, how to formulate adhesives, how to mold soles, how to stitch uppers with the precision that Nike demanded. They learned quality control standards. They learned how to read design specifications. Some workers spent 15 or 20 years inside Nike contract factories, mastering every step of the production process. And then they left. They took their skills, their knowledge, and their contacts and opened their own factories.
And that is what I want to get to. That is what I mean by they sold the American public out, because now the American people, which would have been the factory workers, where if they was producing the shoe in the United States, then they could have been selling it globally. But the big corporate giant, Nike, took the skills to a different country, made them the specialists in producing a shoe, and now they know how to make it, and the average American cannot. The only thing the average American can do is consume it. And so that's how they abandoned the American public, with intelligence as well as an income.
To make shoes for Nike. To make shoes that looked exactly like Nike's, performed exactly like Nike's, and used exactly the same materials and techniques as Nike's, but sold for a fraction of the price. Today, Putian is home to over 4,200 shoe companies, employing roughly 500,000 people. The city has its own nickname in the industry, the shoe capital, but the rest of the world knows it by a different name, the fake shoe capital of the world. There is a saying in the Chinese sneaker community, out of 10 fake designer shoes, 9 are shipped from Putian. But calling what Putian produces fake is both accurate and misleading. Accurate because the shoes carry logos and designs that belong to Nike, Adidas, and other brands without authorization. Misleading because the shoes themselves, the physical product, are often manufactured to the same standard as the originals, using the same materials, the same equipment, and the same techniques. The highest grade Putian shoes are virtually indistinguishable from originals without specialized authentication equipment. The rubber is the same, the foam is the same, the glue is the same. In some cases, the workers who made the Putian shoes previously made the originals in the factory next door. A pair of Air Jordan 13 retails for roughly $200. The same shoe, identical in appearance, materials, and construction quality, produced in a Putian factory, sells for $20 to $40. The Nike authorized factory earns about $4 profit per pair. The Putian factory earns about $30 to $40 profit per pair.
And that is the reason why it's very important for us as Americans to hold these corporations to task, because they sold us out and they inflate us with the prices, and we end up taking the bag, and we end up squandering our generational wealth that we could pass on down to our children, to our family, to grow American communities and have programs for the communities in America that are struggling. So what I would say is, wake up, American people. Stop letting racism and rage baiting stop us from holding these corporations accountable, these entertainers accountable, these politicians accountable, and the government, because none of them are looking out for us. They're looking out for themselves, their individual gain and their individual wealth. So with that being said, I think that we need to, one, become more conscious of the brands that we are consuming. For example, our brand, the Average Movement, evolved the Social Intelligence Club. The goal for that is to create jobs for high-risk communities, people that's living in America and they're living in high-risk communities that are violence-prone, that are battling poverty, and we could reduce violence by just providing them jobs. But if we outsource all of the work, then we are not making jobs and doing job development for American people. The average American that has an idea can't even really produce in America because everything is across seas, and that's because of the corporate companies that has created this for Americans. So let's hold them to task. Stop buying their products. Hold your politicians to task for not protecting American interests, and reinvest in yourselves. With that being said, my name is J.S. Brooks of the At-Risk Movement, and I approve this message. The psychology of freedom. What is freedom? Is it simply the absence of bars and chains? Or is it something deeper? The psychology of freedom takes readers inside the walls of prison to explore a profound truth. A person can be physically free, yet mentally imprisoned, and physically confined, yet mentally and spiritually liberated. Through lived experience, the psychology of freedom reveals how correctional institutions shape behavior, relationships, and identity, not only for prisoners, but for families, communities, and society as a whole. Discover the hidden psychological effects of incarceration, the pathologies that can outlast a prison sentence, and the mindset shifts that can transform adversity into opportunity. This is more than just a book about prison. It's a book about reclaiming the mind. The Psychology of Freedom by G.S. Brooks, available now on Amazon.com. Because true freedom begins within.